There are days. There are days where games like this happen, and the only thing you can say if you cheer for the team that lost is, well, at least it was only one game. Uh, this is the first time in the playoffs that Carolina's lost back-to-back since the first two games against Washington. We remember, of course, and everybody was talking towards the end of this game about how they lost Game 5, 6-0, and they won Game 6 and 7. I have to say this feels different, but we'll see. Because after Game 5, I definitely had them written off. This is it. Carolina's done. They're gone. That's too bad for them. And then Washington lost that series. It was a slow start for both teams. There were no shots 2 minutes and 58 seconds into this game. They're both sort of slow. And the important thing here for Carolina was all the hitting they were doing early on. Carolina got the first shot at 3:02 into the first period. So 2:58 was a whistle. Right off the whistle, they get the puck and they get the shot. The shots were 3-1 Carolina at 8 minutes into this game. And 8 minutes in, I'm going, well, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Not a lot of chances. I'm going to be falling asleep pretty quick here. And Ferland was cranking out the hits. Michael Ferland came out. He was hitting everything that moved. Pasted Grzelcyk, and they were really taking the body to the Bruins, and they were doing quite well for a little while. Chara takes a trip. That's the first penalty of the game, and a solid penalty kill by the Bruins. Carolina, I think it was Nick Kiprio said this is the worst power play he's seen in playoff history. I wouldn't go that far, but I don't know how to defend that. I don't. If we look at what happened today, that power play is now finally seemingly killing Carolina. Throughout the playoffs, we've watched as their special teams have been abysmal, and we've gone, well, but they won. Well, they knocked off the Islanders. Horrible special teams, but 5-on-5. Well, now they're against a team that's pretty good 5-on-5. McGinn and Krug then tangle, and there was no whistle on the play. And that leads into a play where Grzelcyk gets a goal from Johansson and Coyle. So basically on that play where McGinn and Krug are going at it with one another, there was a lot of that in this game where players would pair off and go at it, and referees are like, let them headlock each other. I don't really care. And it led to a Boston goal. Williams then gets a penalty. He knocked down Heinen. If he hadn't knocked down Danton Heinen would have scored. So it was an iffy penalty? Yes. Were there iffy penalties called on Boston? Absolutely. But Boston made him pay, and that's the difference in this game. It's DeBrusk with the power play goal from Pasternak and Krug, and that makes it 2-0. And you got the feeling at that point that Boston was in their heads. This is when you start seeing some... And with Williams, it's been kind of right from the opening face-off in Game 1, where he's been really chatty and really chirpy. And it's almost as if Boston looked at that and went, Marchand, you do your thing. Because it felt like during this game, Brad Marchand was doing whatever he could to get under his skin. And it worked. And I noticed, too, around the time DeBrusk scores, the note goes underneath. But around the time he scored, I noticed Mrazek was scrambly. Now, he wasn't playing poorly, but when you've got a goaltender who's down and he's scrambling and trying to get the puck, and the defense isn't clearing guys out, you're now going to have that top half of the net open for guys to put the puck in the net. And that's what was going on today. So while Mrazek didn't have great numbers, the defense in front of him was absolutely abysmal. Second period, early penalty for the Bruins. This is the chance for Carolina, but that power play doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It hasn't worked throughout the playoffs. Shortly thereafter, who gets this first NHL goal? It's Connor Clifton. So Boston's defense, which coming into the series, I thought, Boston's defense is pretty good, but I'll give the edge to Carolina. Through the first two games, Carolina not been the better defense. Clifton gets the goal from Johansson and Heinen. Johansson, I'm officially to the point of thanking the New Jersey Devils for Johansson. He's been fantastic. And Heinen had probably the best game he's had in the playoffs. And then the Canes were hummed in their zone after that third goal. They were rattled. And it wasn't just they're allowing goals. Boston got in their heads. And all that hitting that we saw early in the game, that's gone. Boston at this point was in complete and total control. I even went upstairs and said to Evander on this point, do you see the marionette strings on the Carolina Hurricanes? Because Boston is in full control. There was too much open ice, I thought, for the Bruins. So when a guy gets the puck in his own zone and he can skate all the way in past the blue line, before anybody even challenges him, that's too much open ice. And Carolina kept giving the Bruins that. So on these goals, a lot of these are shots from the slot. And the last I saw, I think, shots from the slot were something like 12-5 Boston, something like that they showed. It was too much. The shots were 18-9 for Boston at the halfway mark of this game, which is saying something since Carolina early in the season were known as a team that shot from everywhere. Didn't necessarily score, but they shot from everywhere. And then there was a bad stanchion bounce at about the 11-minute mark, which almost resulted in a Hurricanes goal. Williams was close, but Carlo blocked it off so that Williams didn't put it in the empty net. Those bounces off the stanchions, you're used to seeing that happen to a visiting goaltender. The home goalies should know these stanchions are lively. I'd better stay here. So Rask was almost caught out of his net. Then there's a Bruins penalty on Wagner for holding. And what happens? Carolina can't score. Carolina just they could not score on the power play in this game. It just didn't happen. Let me just take a quick look here because I know where the power plays were at one point in this game. But it's just okay. So Bruins penalty on Wagner for holding, and then Marchand and Williams get into it. And this is where you could see Marchand was in his head, and he starts pointing at the captaincy, like, "Oh, are you captain? Unless you're in charge." Williams ends up taking a penalty. Now, was it a great penalty? No. A, he shouldn't engage with Marchand, and B, should they have called it? They probably could have called offsetting there. But guess what? Power play goal. Grzelcyk gets the goal from Coyle and Krug. So twice in this game, Justin Williams finds himself in the box. Twice, Boston smells blood in the water. They get the goal. And that's right around the end of the second period. And after the second period, Carolina's power play's 0 for 3. Boston's 2 for 2. So when Boston's able to get Carolina to take a penalty, they're able to get the goal. And it's 4-0 Boston going into the third period. So now, third period, I don't need to take a whole lot of notes when team's ahead 4-0. And Backes scores pretty early in the period from Krejci and Krug. Boston didn't have a lot of opportunities in the third period, but what they got went in. And I have to say, I'm not sure why McElhinney was in there either. I had people asking me about that. Or why McElhinney wasn't in there, I should say, to start the third period, why it was still Mrazek. But I do think that Curtis will start Game 3. I think that Mrazek gets pulled out of this game, or after this game, and in Game 3, we'll see Curtis McElhinney in net. It's understandable. I think you put in Curtis for the third period in this one if you're going to come back with Mrazek in Game 3, but it's probably going to be Curtis to start Game 3. Bergeron then trips one of the Carolina Hurricanes. That's the second penalty in this game for Bergeron. And on the power play, chance to get something out of it. Carolina, no. As Bergeron comes out of the box, Coyle throws him the puck. So Bergeron, as he emerges from the penalty box, gets the puck, passes it to Danton Heinen, and Heinen with the goal. And I put out of the box under Bergeron there just to make sure I didn't forget to mention that when I was doing the review here. And horrible power plays are killing Carolina. Not only that, but after Heinen scored, you could tell Hamilton's getting really frustrated. He took a run at Heinen. No penalties came out of that, but the Boston faithful watching the game, they started the Dougie chants after that sixth goal. So even though it wasn't really his fault, he can't cover two guys at once. But you could argue that the shot that led to Coyle intercepting the puck to throw it to Bergeron, I believe that shot was from Hamilton. I guess you can blame him on that. Yeah. And then Carolina, I'm not going to say they woke up. Boston just kind of stopped. Williams gets a goal from Falk and Aho, which makes it 6-1. And I don't know. Does this help Williams going into Game 3? Like, I can't see anything carrying over from this game. This was just a destruction by the Boston Bruins. And the "We Want the Cup" chants were really loud. They were prominent through this game. They were prominent in the last one, too. I am in agreement that that these fans are on the right track. That the "We Want the Cup" chant should be there once you reach this round. I know from playing old NHL games, EA Sports NHL games, the first game of the playoffs, I would start playing and my team would be winning, and I'd hear the fans chanting "We want the cup." And while I'm playing the game, I would say out loud to the TV, "It's early. Don't pressure me. Stop it. Just it's early. Leave it alone." It was a quiet second half of the third. It felt like they were killing time, and neither team seemed anxious to get into a fight or any, there was no physical, no big scrums. This wasn't one of those games that you look at the end and you go, man, there's going to be some ugliness in the next game. It kind of felt like maybe between the second and the third, maybe Rod Brindamore went to a few of his players and said, look, you can't let Marchand pull your strings like that. You've got to be in complete control of yourself in these games. And maybe that's what happened. But then Teravainen gets a beautiful pass from Tuukka Rask. Rask came out of the net, and I understand why he did it. It was a breakaway in on his net, but he passed it right to Teuvo Teravainen, who puts it in the net to make it 6-2. That was with 2 minutes and 28 seconds left. If this was a tie game, Tuukka doesn't come out of the net and make that play. Tuukka might have come out of the net, but he would have played it, just rung it around the boards behind his net. But in this case, he's just going for the home run pass because they're up by 5. So Teravainen gets a goal. There was no real celebration from them with this. It's a 6-2 win for Boston. They're ahead 2-0. It is true that you're not in trouble in a series until you lose at home. But now Carolina goes home and they need to win games 3 and 4. This is no longer if they win at home, if they get a split, they can make it a best 2 out of 3. No. They have to win both at home to make it a best 2 out of 3. And they're still in a situation where they'd have to win at least 1 in Boston. And today, Boston just, partway through this game, to me it started feeling like the old days, way back to Ray Bourque when it was the Bruins and the Whalers. It started feeling like an old series between the Bruins and the Whalers in this one. The way the Bruins were pushing them around, the way that the Hurricanes came out early and they looked okay, but then the Bruins got in their heads. It reminded me of the 80s right there. Shots were only 6-4 in that third period. I've got Boston up there, but that's because I got Boston on the brain right now. It wasn't Boston that had the edge in shots. It was Carolina. Boston with only 4 shots in the third. 2 of them were goals. Again, they were getting too many opportunities from in close. The defense wasn't clearing anything out. Maybe with McElhinney in because he plays different than does Mrazek, maybe it gives the defense a better chance. Maybe it gives Boston a different look in Game 3. But man, tonight there was no look that was stopping them. Carolina ends up 0 for 4 on the power play. Boston. Yeah, I got to fix that. Boston ends up 2 for 2. So Boston only had 2 power plays. Carolina had 4. Carolina had double the power plays. Could not score. There's the one play here where Bergeron's coming out of the box and got it. So that's almost like a shorthanded goal. And Boston, when they had the 2 power plays they scored on both. This was a tight checking game. It was a game that featured a lot of extracurricular activities away from the puck that wasn't called either way. So guys pairing off with each other, like I said. And we'll see how things turn out back in Carolina. Mrazek saves 19 out of 25. It's an ugly stat line. I don't blame him on this one. Rask, 21 saves on 23 shots. I'll give him a pass, like I said, on the Teravainen goal because he wouldn't have come out of the net and played it that way unless they're up by 5 goals. I don't think he really cared. I think if he was still pitching a shutout too, I think he would have played that differently. But once the shutout was broken, you might as well come out and go for the home run pass, go for the assist. But it's a big win, and the Bruins look pretty damn solid right now. I don't really have anything positive to say about Carolina other than it's only one game. This was Boston's. They outshot Carolina in the end 25-23. And we'll see how things turn out in Carolina. The Hurricanes are pretty darn good at home. Boston on the road, though, they've been okay in these playoffs as well. They managed to wrestle away a few victories on the road. We'll see how things turn out in Game 3, but today was all Boston. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video and hey, Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.